I'm going to break up with my fiancé today. Our wedding is next week. My fiancé, who I'll call Jackson, is very picky about how things look, but has never made any comments about me or the way I do things. I had a beautiful dress for the wedding that was designed by my oldest brother. My oldest brother, who I'll call Percy, was a small-time designer, and he made my sister and cousin's wedding dresses, and he made one for me when I was 20. Percy had a malignant primary cardiac tumor, which is just a long phrase for heart cancer, and was diagnosed when he was 21 and died when he was 23. I've always kept the dress he made in my closet, and I planned on having it made to my measurement when I got married. I already had it tailored for me. I never showed Jackson the dress, and I never told him who made it. Jackson never met Percy because I met Jackson after Percy died, and last night I showed him the dress for the very first time, and he said, "Whoever made that dress clearly doesn't know anything about fashion. We're buying you a new dress tomorrow." I didn't say anything and just left to stay with my sister for the night. The mistake I made was leaving the dress in mine and Jackson's apartment after I had left. When I got back this morning, I found my dress torn to shreds. No! I immediately called Jackson and started screaming at him. I told him the dress was one of a kind and couldn't be replaced. He said that I could always just buy another dress, one that actually looks good. I haven't told him that I'm going to break up with him yet. I plan on waiting until he gets home and talking to him, and then going to stay at my sister's house for a while. I feel horrible for what happened to the dress, and I'm really sad that I'll never be able to walk down the aisle in the one-of-a-kind wedding dress that my big brother made for me before he died. Am I wrong for making a scene at my sister's wedding, which she spent more than $10,000 on, over a joke? My sister, 24 female, got married last week. Her wedding was very well planned out. We received invitations 6 months before, and my sister poured about $10,000 into this wedding, and that's without catering costs added. She also invited over 100 people. It was an ethnic wedding, so there were some friends of friends. The ceremony was beautiful. There were so many pictures taken, everyone having a great time. I dream of eating the food I ate there just once again in my life. Even the rehearsal dinner a week before was magical. The issue came after my sister and her husband said, "I do." It was at the reception. The cake was cut and everything was great. They were laughing and having a good time, and then they went back up and said their speeches. Her husband's speech was touching with a humorous twist. When it came time for hers, things went south. She started off great, making a few jokes about a few family members. Nothing harmful. But then it got to me. She made a joke about considering having a dry wedding because I was such an addict. To clarify, I've struggled with an alcohol addiction, and she is well aware. She was never really supportive of my recovery journey because she always saw me as an addict. My sister has this idea that once you struggle with an addiction, you go crazy and lose control if you get the chance again. No matter if you recover or not, in her eyes, you're always an addict. Everyone laughed and I felt humiliated. She was laughing too and then continued. I didn't want to interrupt her, so I just waited. I felt like crying and screaming at the same time. It was a rage yet sadness I'd never experienced before. After her speech, I spoke up. I brought her somewhere private and I told her that I didn't appreciate her jokes and it wasn't funny and that I felt like she humiliated me. She got so angry and started yelling things like, "I have a whole wedding waiting for me back there. Who do you think you are to bring me here and waste my time? And it's just a joke. Don't be so pissy." She accused me of ruining her wedding and started screaming. She left back to the ceremony and I just stood there. Once I came back, everyone was staring at me and my sister was sobbing in my dad's arms. My dad proceeded to yell at me, telling me I ruined my sister's wedding and made a scene. I yelled back, and when I noticed a lot of people were watching, I got angry and left. Now all of my family's mad at me and they won't stop sending me text messages telling me I should apologize. I don't want to. So, am I the asshole?
Am I in the wrong for telling my mum she's going straight into a nursing home whilst my dad is going to live a life of luxury? Story time! So, I have never really had a very good relationship with my mum. We'll call her Sandra. She's a very vain, superficial and very materialistic woman. That's just not my vibe. In all honesty, I do not see what my dad sees in her at all. I can tell you the exact moment as to when I stopped caring about my mum. So when I was 13, I was riding my bike and I got into an awful accident. I basically got hit by a car. One of the worst injuries I got was on my face. I had a really, really bad scar. It would take cosmetic surgery to fix and rectify. And as soon as I recovered from like the other physical injuries, my mum really started to push me to have this surgery. I had not so great of a time in hospital and I was just far too anxious to go back. But fortunately, my dad put his foot down and was like, when she's ready to have the surgery, she can have the surgery, but she's not doing it till she's ready. Slay dad. My dad reminded me every day that I was still beautiful. Later in life, I would find out that my mum had told my brothers to make me feel ugly for my scar so that I could get the surgery quicker. And if I ever had a hard time at school because of it and kids were making fun of me for how I looked, my mum would be like, Well, you know how to fix it. Because of the type of job that my dad had, he wasn't seeing much of this go on. He could never really shield me from my mum's opinions. But when he finally found out what had been going on, he lost his shit. And he even threatened to divorce my mum. Slay number 2 for dad. Eventually, I caved and I ended up getting the surgery. During my recovery time, my mum got invited to her best friend's wedding. The whole family was invited, but she only took my brothers because she still believed I was too ugly whilst I still was recovering from the surgery. She didn't believe that I'd be pretty enough to be involved in the wedding pictures. And from that day, I literally hated my mum. Didn't want her involved in any big moments in my life. So me and my husband just bought our first house, and like in the garden, it's like a little garage type thing which has a bedroom, a bathroom, a little living room and a kitchenette, and this is where I intend for my dad to be able to live one day. And when my mum saw the house, she made every single complaint she could. She said that she was going to require one of the bedrooms in our house, and I looked at her and I was like, why do you think that? Like, why do you even think you're gonna have like a little sleepover for one night, let alone like stay with me? She was like, what do you mean? I said, why do you think I'd have you in my house and I wouldn't find the cheapest care home I could find and put you in there? Mother was absolutely shocked. And at that moment, I got to tell her all of the crappy stuff. So fired up today. At that moment, I finally told her how much of a crappy parent she was. And unless her beloved sons are going to pamper her in her old age, she will be left on the streets in an adult diaper. Now my brothers are calling me daily, telling me how much of an insensitive arsehole I am. Inconsiderate arseholes. They say I should forgive her past mistakes. But personally, I'm not really too sure what I've done wrong here. But yeah, please do let me know what you think about all of this in the comments.
Am I in the wrong for reuniting with my dying ex-girlfriend? I, 36 male, am married to a beautiful woman, 35 female, with whom I've been with for 15 years. She gave birth to our son 2 months ago. In total, we have 2 biological children, 13 female, 0 male, and 1 adopted child, 6 male together. And we are currently looking after 2 foster children, 14 male, 9 female. When I was 11, my best friend was a girl that I met in boarding school. I was a shy, sensitive kid who had an adverse home life and didn't get along well with my classmates, so she was the first friend I ever made. I had a crush on her for a few years, and we even briefly dated when we were 15, but we never considered it anything serious. Throughout high school, we were inseparable, but after graduating, I got accepted to a college in the US and had to move away. We promised to keep in contact, but ended up drifting apart and losing touch. Recently, she messaged me out of the blue and told me that she had terminal leukemia and only had a few months left to live. She wants to reconnect with me, and I suggested I come visit her in the last months of her life. When I brought this up to my wife, she was very opposed to the idea and told me that I was acting impulsively. She doesn't want me visiting an ex-girlfriend while she's stuck at home with the kids. I understand that she has a lot going on at home with the kids and a new baby, but I have forever to make it up to her, whereas I only have a few months to reunite with someone who was at one point one of the most important people in my life. So would I be in the wrong? Am I in the wrong for divorcing my wife because our sex life will never be what it used to be? When my wife was pregnant, her libido dropped. I searched around on the internet about it, and apparently it's very common in case of pregnancy and postpartum period, so I didn't push it any further. Then she gave birth and no sex. I waited a year to broach the conversation because apparently breastfeeding decreases libido too. After a lot of discussions, we went to therapy. Couples therapy was a very different experience to me. My wife was just better at talking about her feelings, so I was advised to go to individual therapy to help me with it. I found a dude, and we hit it off instantly. He is my type of therapist, no BS kind of guy, calls you out on your BS and then accurately explains what's going on. Our couples therapist is a woman and very preachy in the way that she talks. I'm like, get to the point. So a few months into couples therapy, and the conclusion was that I need to manage my expectations regarding sex, that we're not going to be having that much, and that quality of sex that we were once having. So I asked my therapist if I have to manage my expectations, and he said not really, if I don't wanna. He said that there's nothing wrong with having expectations, and if my wife can't meet them, she can't meet them. What I can't do is agree to compromise and then hold it against her head. I thought about it, and I have decided that compromise on sex is not for me. I don't want to be in a relationship that's not sexually satisfactory. I've given 2 years to this relationship, I'm not willing to give more. And it seems like the couples therapist and my wife are trying to make me be okay with subpar sex life. So I communicated in therapy, and the therapist's response was basically, yes, she's doing what I think she's doing, but I should see it in a positive light because she knows what she's doing and I don't. I told him that the divorce is a good situation here because I'll never be one to manage my expectations. And I told her I'm not willing to give you more money and whether she would do it for free. She didn't say anything, and I just smiled and walked away. I ended our couples therapy and asked my wife for a divorce. My wife is not happy about it and now wants to work on our relationship. But a relationship without a very good sex life is not a good goal worth fighting for me. She said that she'll work towards it. I said, do it then. It's been 2 days, nothing has changed really. I mean, she has all the time she needs before the divorce is finalized, so that's that. But I'm not hopeful. I'm giving more to this relationship than I'm getting back from it. It's not sustainable. I think divorce is best for both of us. Am I in the wrong? Am I in the wrong for going on a hiking trip with my pregnant wife? Over the weekend, my wife and I went on a hiking trip with some friends. We've always been active people, but it kind of seems like my wife, who's 6 months pregnant, has sort of turned into a couch potato in the recent weeks. It's caused her to gain a bit of weight and become moody, so I figured some exercise would be good for her and for me. Well, I thought I picked a pretty easy hike. It's a trail that's close to our house and not that long, about 3 miles out and back, but it can be a bit steep in places. She's done it before, so it couldn't have been too much of a surprise. Well, we were about a third of the way done when my wife started huffing and puffing. My friend slowed down to accommodate her, so I decided to slow down too. After half a mile of huffing and puffing, my wife looked pretty bad. She got really pale and was hunched over on one side of the trail. I was sort of shocked to see her in this state. She had let herself go recently, but I didn't think that she would lose her fitness this quickly. However, a few minutes later, she actually started to throw up, and it was at this point that we all decided to head back. I'm fully aware that she's going to deliver a baby in 3 months, but I can't help but to think that she wouldn't have embarrassed me in front of my friends if she had kept up with her exercise routine. We both ate the same food at breakfast, and I never got sick, so that couldn't be it either. We got back to the parking lot, and I apologized for my wife's behavior to my friends. I thought I was out of earshot, but apparently my wife heard the whole thing. When I got back to the car, she went nuts. She told me that I was an idiot for thinking that she could keep up at normal pace and that I was a grade A a-hole for insinuating that my wife had thrown up on purpose. I listened to her rant at me before politely asking if she thought that she would have felt so sick if she hadn't been a couch potato recently, but she refused to engage with me at all. I wanted it to dawn on her that she was at least partially to blame for this, but she refused to take any responsibility. This happened on Saturday, and even today has been really tense. It's as if she's holding a grudge against me, and I don't know how to get her to stop. She's really making me sad with this horrible treatment. Would I be in the wrong for leaving my wife when we're trying to get pregnant? I'm 32 and my wife, 30 female, has 12 siblings and they all have a few kids. She's the only one without children. When I met her, her family always joked that she'd never have kids because she didn't want them. She was eternally the world's best aunt. This almost ended our relationship early, but she informed me that she could take them or leave them. It's just never been a priority and something that she did actively avoid. After a year of dating, she told me that I was the kind of man she could give babies to because she felt comfortable knowing that I would be there for her. Her family is all across the South from Florida to Louisiana. My family is small and nestled against the Great Lake. 2 years ago, a year into our marriage, I asked her if we could move closer to my family because my parents weren't doing well. She agreed but said that she didn't want to start a family there because it's very cold and very hard on her body. We would have to send the kids to private school for either of us to feel safe or like they were getting an education. And all her hobbies need to be warm weather and water. She'll only be able to participate in them at most 3 months out of the year here. I agreed because all of that was reasonable. Well, we've been here for 2 years and the cold hasn't been that hard on her body. But because of the water conditions and pollution, she actually gets to participate in her hobbies less than anticipated. My father passed away, and my mom isn't doing great, but I have fallen in love with getting to be an uncle to my nieces. I've never lived around them before, but it's the best, and I feel really guilty leaving my sisters after my parents are gone. My wife and I are trying for a baby, and we're actually waiting to see if it took this time. I admitted to her that I want to stay, but would be willing to retire south. She, however, did not take it well. We fought to the point that she said if I wanted to stay so bad, I could have the kid and we could stay, and she'd pay child support in summers. Now my head is swimming. Would I be in the wrong for breaking it off or at least asking for separation? Am I in the wrong for not wanting to share my birthday with my dead twin anymore? I, 16 female here, soon to be 17 in 3 days. I was a twin. My brother died hours after birth. He was 5 minutes older than me. I was told my mother went into deep depression, but with help got better over time. I've watched videos of my birthdays from 1 to 6 years old, and me sharing my birthday with my brother has started since my first birthday. There's always that 5 minutes of remembrance and honor for him, and instead of having one candle on my cake, there will always be extra or extras for him. As a kid, I didn't really understand or mind it because I got to blow out extra candles. When I was 8, I did question it, and they told me that it was in remembrance of my brother since we share the same birthday. This carried on until my 16th, that I didn't get to celebrate because I ended up being in the hospital. My grandpa showed up at the hospital while I was recovering and wished me and only me a happy birthday. After he left, I realized I love that he only acknowledged me. I realized I didn't want to keep sharing my birthday with my brother, but then I felt guilty. I did try to speak to my parents about just me celebrating my birthday this year, but I was brushed off. Now we come to what happened 4 days ago, and my grandpa, who was the official cake maker in the family, asked what type of cake I wanted. I told him and added firmly with only 17 candles, please. My parents were in the next room, and immediately they came in demanding to know what I was doing, that I should know that the other 17 candles were there for my brother, and I ended up crying and told them that he's not even here and I am. I can't remember everything that was said, but there was a lot of shouting with me and my parents and my grandpa, and me being told that I'm selfish and need to stop being self-centered. My grandpa left with me. I've been at his house since the big fight. I've been crying a lot and Grandpa has been here for me, but I feel so guilty and need to ask, am I in the wrong?